Welcome to episode 143 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. Here we are in this world where our democracy is hanging by a thread, and we can't seem to go through a day without a mass shooting. These are crazy times. While the problems we face appear to be a bunch of bad, if not disastrous choices by individuals, I would like for us to take it back in time. Back to where the people who are making these choices were children who were being raised. When I look at what is going on around us, I think about two different concepts that we need to discuss. These are two different gaps in our collective awareness that I think reveal parenting failures. It's tough to consider anything a parenting failure because no one goes into parenting hoping to fail. We all go in with some sort of vision of doing the job well, but it is clear that the outcomes we are getting do not reflect parenting successes. The concepts that I want to talk about are responsibility and resilience. To be fair, no one tells you when you bring that baby home how you are to instill either responsibility or resilience in this little being. And we aren't all starting with the same materials in terms of the baby that has arrived. Some babies come here having already achieved the higher levels of spiritual awareness in their previous lives, which makes them easy to work with. With these children, some simple reminders of how they are to behave seems to do the trick. They don't offer much resistance because you are reminding them of things that they already know. Then there are those children who come to us who have not yet achieved the higher levels of spiritual awareness. These concepts are new to them, and you are basically starting from scratch. You can't get away with simple reminders. You need to build all the foundational understanding of why these concepts matter and how one would go about incorporating them into daily life and the choices they make. These children will need much more instruction along with much more patience. These lessons will need to be taught and retaught at every stage of development. But done right, these children can leave your home at a very high level of spiritual awareness. With loving guidance and understanding, every child can advance many grade levels during their childhood. Let's start with responsibility. I think of this as I watch everything unfold regarding a man who was our previous president. This man did not and does not feel that he should be held responsible for any of his actions. That is a fair point of view, since he has made an entire life of lying, cheating, stealing, and abusing everyone in his midst. He has left a huge wake of destruction in his path, as everyone who gets entangled with him suffers either professionally, personally, or both. For reasons that are outside of my understanding, he hasn't been held accountable for any of it. Psychologists can apply all sorts of labels for a person like him, but what we know him to be is a person who is still at the very low levels of spiritual awareness. And sadly, in his case, no one ever took the time to help him grow to any higher levels. Attributes like honesty, integrity, empathy, and humility were not valued in his childhood. He went on to surround himself with other people who were still in the lower levels. They revered his ability to be the worst of the worst. There are many who still revere him for how comfortable he is with being truly awful. This is a parenting failure that has impacted the entire world, which has got to be the worst type of parenting failure to have. So how do you make sure you do not raise the next person who will live on in infamy as this man will? I think the first thing you have to do is to be prepared to meet your child exactly where they are on the awareness spectrum, and to do so without the ordinary judgment that some think may come with that. Every child is perfectly who they came here to be. The value of a child who is already at the higher levels of awareness is no higher than one who is coming in fresh and ready to learn. This cannot be seen as either getting a good child or getting a bad child. They are all good. It is also important to remember that each child chose you as a parent because they knew that you would be able to share with them the puzzle pieces that they would need to grow to higher levels. Just to keep it all interesting, some children chose you as a parent because they knew that they had some of the puzzle pieces that you needed. Children can come in at lower levels of spiritual awareness than their parents, or they can come in from higher levels to assist the parents in their growth. Just sit with that concept for a minute, and you will have to undo all that you have understood about the parent-child relationship. Each pairing is unique in its construction and perfectly put together for the maximum growth of both the parent and the child. And the process of parenting is always a back and forth, one teaching and one learning. This is not defined by the age or position in the family. This reality is why you can't parent each and every child the same way and expect success. They are not, in the most important ways, the same. You need to address the spiritual needs of each child as a completely separate project. There is no hiding behind the fact that other children in the family turned out just fine, so the person you consider your problem child should have been fine too. Children can't get to the higher levels without the loving guidance of those who are nurturing them. This is the sacred agreement you made before your family was even formed. So how do you grow a responsible human being? And what does it even mean to be responsible? I think being responsible is being fully connected to the choices you make and open to accountability for however those choices turn out. It is about making choices that are founded in honesty, integrity, empathy, and humility to the level that you are capable of at that moment in time. The accountability comes in when your levels of those considerations are not high enough. Some might boil this down to knowing right from wrong, but it really is more complex than that. To teach a child to be connected to their choices, you must first be paying attention to their choices. If you can't be there to witness, then you need to make sure they are in the presence of someone who will reinforce the same standards that you would. In addition to being aware of the choices your child makes, you must keep your focus on the honesty, integrity, empathy, and humility aspects instead of judging your child by the standards that the culture values, like winning. This is a sickness in our culture that leads us to value all the wrong things, like who has the most money, who wins the most awards, and who has the most stuff. This particular sickness is why we face so many of the problems that we do right now. We admire the wrong people for the wrong reasons. As we know, Those at the lowest levels of spiritual awareness often have the most money, the most stuff, and the most attention paid to them because it is easy to achieve these things if you are not encumbered by honesty, integrity, empathy, or humility. Those attributes make it more difficult to achieve success as our culture sees it. It is very easy to be successful if you allow yourself to lie, cheat, steal, and abuse. It is easy to be successful if you have no regard for how your actions affect others. So to raise responsible children, you have to retrain your focus onto their character. We need to ignore the useless accolades and trophies and focus on the character of our children. That is our only hope for building a future that is sustainable and full of hope and promise. We can't fill this world with people who are allowed to stay at the lowest levels of awareness if we want a better world. This world is built one child at a time. Thanks for returning for another week of Rebirth Revolution. Next week we will continue this discussion. If we can see the world in a new way, we can create the world that we wish to live in. I'm not saying it will be easy, but it is something that can be done. Rebirth Revolution can be found on all the podcast apps, the music apps, on Audible, and full episodes can be found on our YouTube and Facebook pages. You can find all episodes at rebirthrevolution.com. Until next week, keep watching the chaos unfold. Pay attention to the big stuff and let yourself off the hook for the small stuff. Stick with your COVID precautions and observe all the beauty around you. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe and forward thinking.